Welcome to r/JustNoHOA, where people tell stories about their crazy homeowner associations. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. Unintended and unwelcome consequences. Picky, nosy neighbors who have the president of the local homeowners association on speed dial are a real nuisance. One day a few years ago, my faithful old Volvo gave up the ghost. The automatic transmission was slowly going out. The final blow was when an oil line to an external oil filter developed a pinhole leak and the engine seized when all the oil escaped. I had the car towed home and it sat in the driveway for a month or so while I tried to decide what to do with it. The options being to replace both the engine and transmission or sell it off cheap either for parts or to someone who wanted to get it running again. I finally, reluctantly decided to let it go. I would miss it as it had been probably the best car I had ever had and I had done some serious upgrades and improvement to it. About this time, my neighbor called the HOA to complain that I had a junk car in the driveway that I was parting out. To hear her version, the president expected to see something on cinder blocks with no doors, the hood up and no engine. The truth was that it was still intact with current license plates and insurance, and there was no way to tell from looking at it that it was not running. Nevertheless, I was given 1 week to either fix the car or have it gone. The busybody neighbor was known for being extremely conservative. She made teabaggers seem middle of the road. One of the things which she had a particular dislike for was the local NPR radio station, which was associated with a local university. The station was running a fundraiser at the time, so I decided to kill two birds with one stone. I donated the car to the radio station. The appointed Saturday came around and the car was being picked up by a tow truck when she came out to watch the proceedings with a smug look. She commented to me that it was about time that piece of junk was being removed, and when I replied that I had donated it to the local NPR station, her smug look was instantly replaced by horror, quickly followed by livid anger. She stalked back into her house and slammed the door. I was happy that even to the last, my trusty Volvo had been useful. Guys, feel free to let me know in the comments what has been your most reliable car so far. Mom and Pop wrote the HOA so they would have a monopoly. So, about 6 years ago, my wife and I bought a townhouse in a small town. A condition of the purchase was to join the HOA. Sure, whatever, it is a small town surrounded by farmland, cheap dues, not a big issue. Living there for about a year, no big issue, we have our first son. 2 years later, we are expecting our second son. We decide to switch places with my single sister, who is living in my childhood home, 5 bedrooms versus our 2, easy decision since we will have a newborn and a 2-year-old. So we make the switch 2 months later. I get a call from Clar, husband, and Dorothy, who live across the street from our townhouse. Clar built all the townhouses in the 80s and still owns 4 of them, which he rents. His buddy also owns and rents 4, one of which we share a wall with. Clar informs me that it is against HOA rules to rent units unless you own 4. Conveniently, the HOA was written by Clar. I told him I know and that I am letting my sister live there rent-free, which I am. He says that that is highly irregular and insists I come to the HOA meeting. I'm like, sure, not breaking any rules. At the HOA meeting, he demands proof that I am not receiving payment for my sister. I have to inform him that I cannot prove something that does not exist and that the burden of proof lies on him. I also may have told him in front of all his neighbors that I thought I moved to Exburg and not Soviet Russia. He wanted to put it to a vote. I said go ahead and have the vote, but if it didn't go in my favor, I was not going to abide by it. The vote went my way. The only dissenting votes were him and his buddy trying to protect their monopoly. He insists I go to every meeting still to defend my case. I don't, but sometimes I lay awake thinking of ways I could make his life hard if I did. Actually, after reading all these HOA stories, I would definitely think twice about purchasing a house where joining the HOA is a condition of the purchase, especially if it is a small town. HOA turned off my pool fob because my disability is distracting. Okay, so when we moved into our condo, our HOA was actually pretty good. But ever since one crazy old bat got on the board, everything has gone downhill. It all started at the end of last summer. I am disabled, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia, and I use a cane to walk. As part of my physical therapy, I used the pool to do hydrotherapy routines. No one I had met minded this, as I only took up a corner of the pool. But after being witnessed doing water therapy by this old bat, everything changed. She got the nastiest look on her face and informed me that I was taking up too much space in the pool and was distracting and detracting from others' enjoyment. It's a huge pool and I am not a big person. Anyway, winter came and I thought that was the end of it, but I tried to go down to the pool a few weeks ago at the beginning of our vacation. My husband and I are teachers. Our pool fob had been turned off, and we called the HOA and they sent us a bullcrap form letter about us violating pool rules, which we never have. It is absolutely ridiculous that I now have to pay for a Y membership to do therapy when the pool is literally behind our condo, all because one old hag hates disabled people. If you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Furthermore, I've noticed that still around 60% of the people that are watching my current videos are not actually subscribed to my channel. If you are one of those people, I would really appreciate it if you could take the 2 seconds to subscribe because I upload daily content. And now let's continue with the stories. The next story is gonna be an update to the pool story from just now. Final update, pool fobs are back. So, good news and bad news. Bad news, to start off with, I would like to apologize for any typos. I messed up my hand opening a stubborn juice bottle and now my middle right finger is in an immobilizer splint for a week. The good news is my husband and I have brand new pool fobs courtesy of the HOA along with a letter of apology, basically, please don't sue us, please don't sue us, over and over again. We immediately went and checked if they work, and they do. So my friend's threatening letter worked. I won't post the letter due to a lot of identifying info, but suffice to say it was sufficient for now. She always was terrifying when she needed to be. I've also heard whisperings from the neighborhood gossip that this gave some serious impetus to the other board members to try to get rid of her. Apparently, she's been making their lives miserable too. Here's hoping she's not on the board for long after this. Even so, our goal of moving by next year has strengthened. Even if she does get her full comeuppance, I don't want to find out if she's vengeful, especially if she does not get kicked off the board. And by the way guys, I know this story feels a little bit incomplete. Unfortunately, the second update was the only one I could find, and I would say it's still better than not having any update at all. It started as an innocent survey. My parents live in one of those master plan community neighborhoods and have mostly had no issues with an HOA apart of people reporting too many cars in our driveway. At one point, we had 5 people living in our house with 5 cars. And being reported for taking our dog across the street to the mailbox without a leash, which we have always wanted to know who reported us because pretty much everyone on the street had a dog. Anyway, nothing could have prepared them or any of their neighbors for what happened in 2016. That summer, a survey went out to everyone to gauge interest in adding some tennis and volleyball courts, nothing formal or anything, just a casual poll. That September, another letter goes out informing everyone that next year's dues are going to be increasing for community maintenance and upgrades. No one knew anything about this, there was no meeting, no vote, nothing except a non-binding survey to gauge interest. Several long political rant-style Facebook posts pop up on the community Facebook page talking about bribes and backdoor dealings. Lawyers in the neighborhood start breaking out the HOA's bylaws and how they violated them, the board should be sued, impeached, etc. The HOA responds by saying that they have the right to raise dues without a vote under certain circumstances, that ultimately this was in response to raising maintenance costs, and the community maintenance and upgrades does not include the things in the survey. Then, someone close to a member of the board mentions a party he was invited to in the neighborhood where those things were in fact discussed, and basically they decided that since there was enough interest, they decided to raise the dues and hopes that nobody would fuss. At this point, the Facebook mob does not settle for merely suing the HOA, but calls for impeachment of the board. I don't know if it was due to people caught up in political energy with the 2016 election going on, but over the next month, not do flame wars continue on the Facebook page and people try to rally people for or against the HOA, but my parents sent me a picture of campaign signs in people's yards. Then I am visiting over a weekend and answer the door to literal campaigners asking if we were for or against impeachment. Finally, the meeting occurs and my parents tell me there were so many people that cars were even parked along their street a good distance away from one of the community centers where it was held. They were impeached. It wasn't even a close vote according to what my parents told me they read on Facebook. The new board has not been brave enough to bring up the issue of adding tennis courts, at least yet. That's a surprisingly democratic outcome, but it's good to know that even an HOA can get impeached. FHOA. You don't get to supersede the federal government, you stupid people. The reject hall pass monitors are at it again. We've had a number of issues with the hypocrisy of our board. Conflicts of interest to be specific. A petition went around to remove the corrupt board, but not enough votes were put into place due to her bullying residents into signing a counter petition. So now the board is going after anyone who signed the petition. The management company told the board who signed it. My wife is a Buddhist. Every place we have lived unfortunately has had an HOA, but none have ever bothered her for following her rituals. As a Buddhist, your home is your temple where you pray. Your shoes do not come into the home. We live in an 18-unit condo complex. Each unit has a deep alcove. My wife and I leave our shoes in our alcove. This has started a shitstorm, threats of fines. We had to go to an appeal and for the 4th time had to explain this is due to our religious observation. We pointed out the hypocrisy of the board members keeping things in common areas where we keep our shoes are not common areas as it is not cleaned, and they keep redefining what is common area and what is not. The president lied about who filed the complaint. We have a recording of her telling us who filed the complaint, and they signed an affidavit saying they never complained. The rule they are attempting to enforce is a very vague up to interpretation type rule that changes constantly and to benefit themselves. We have a lawyer and previously gave the president a cease and desist order. So she now has her lackeys coming after us. We have spoken to everyone in the community and they are beyond angry. We informed them, both the board of directors and the community, we will not be paying their fines, and if they want to hurt the community by being bigoted, legal action will be taken. Edit, the reason for my title, their response when we let them know they are infringing on our rights. As far as FHA, the BOD is enforcing house rules. Second edit, figured I would give you the rule they are enforcing. Nothing shall be altered, removed from or stored in the common elements without proper written approval from the board of directors. So they have the power to write the permission slip, they are just choosing to be dicks. I suppose the title is named in regards to religious freedom basically not being granted for this Buddhist woman. I'm wondering what they think about people having crosses above their doors. In case that is also a common area, then that isn't allowed either. And the next story was posted by Mama Sun on our own subreddit r/ripestories and is concerned with entitled people/entitled parents. Therefore, this has nothing to do with HOAs, but it just brings in a little bit of variety. It is titled, Toxic EK Gets Owned by Trained Attack EM Over Ventrilo. Confession, I was an entitled diva growing up, but my beloved husband trained me to respect others. Also, I give Ripe permission to use this on his YouTube. Background, back in 2009, my teenage kids discovered that my new laptop had a trial for World of Warcraft. With badly hidden smirks, they said to try it. Thanks kids, I've been addicted since. I started as Alliance, but most players were kids and it got uncomfortable. No one wanted to play with a mom. Somebody whispered me in game that the Horde players were more mature, and I can definitely confirm from personal experience that is not the case. Anyway, so entitled me paid for a swap. As with most players, I wanted the benefits you get in the bigger guilds. When I saw a top raiding guild was asking for players to fill out teams, I sneakily asked them if they could recommend a guild that could teach me how to raid, and I was a real-life mom. Not only did they bring me into the guild, they made me my own rank just below the raiders. Guild mom. I ended up sort of being their online mommy if they got attacked by the other faction while leveling alts. I was asked to escort them to keep them safe and try to stop quest NPCs from being killed. They begrudgingly accepted my teen son for raiding at my request. He turned out to be a great raider, and the guild leaders almost jumped through hoops for me letting him play. Bribes to extend his school night curfew, changing raid times when I would not budge, nagging son about homework because I did not let him play if it was not finished. My brat son has never forgiven me and made alt characters just to hunt and kill me for almost 5 years. So on to the story. Due to the success of my kid, they started accepting younger players for raiding. One kid in particular, though very good, had a very toxic manner in voice chat. Our guild leaders had a private voice chat with me about trying to see if I could help. On raid night, I told my son I would be in chat but would not say anything unless that kid acted up. My son asked me to sit in the same room during the raid so he could bring me up to speed on this kid. This immediately raised red flags. I was cleaning up after dinner when my son yelled at me to get on. He's starting. When I logged into Ventrilo, the majority of raiders almost blew out my headset with joyous greetings. I had to key my mic several times to get them to be quiet. My son had rolled off the couch laughing at my scowl. Before I could even ask what was going on, the kid started up. Not only was he telling the top raiders how they screwed up that last pull on a raid they had easily cleared last week, the very one they had carried my character through to get a gear drop, he was actually using a lot of bad words. Now I understand that players do swear in game, but this was off the charts. My son knows that I go quiet when I get mad, and I do a Spock eyebrow when I go Mount St. Helen on someone. He started laughing over chat before he could shut off his mic, which set off the kid at him. The leaders began privately texting my son about what was causing him to laugh. He told them to be quiet and wait for it. When the kid finally stopped and demanded somebody to respond, I asked him, "Are you done? Can I talk now?" He gave me the go-ahead with so many unpleasant words, my son's jaw dropped. Flashback to dirty fly swatter, boomerang shoe and soap. I asked him if his parents/guardians were able to hear him and if he was on parental game controls. In a very small voice, he asked just who I was. I told him I was the guild mom and the real-life mother to one of the guild's better raiders, and the guild had carried me in this raid last week at a higher difficulty with alts. By the way, I forgot to explain in case someone does not know these online role-playing games. So essentially, raids are special places that you can go to in these games, usually with up to 20 to 30 people or even more together in order to fight a really big monster and get special rewards. Moreover, a guild, or sometimes called clan, is basically a group in which people are together in order to fight monsters, do quests, etc. So anyway, onto the story. I informed the kid that I could send a message to Blizzard, the developers of the game, to forward this to his grown-ups to limit him in-game. If Blizzard did not ban him first, lied through my teeth. He caved and we could hear the tears as he begged me to not tell on him. My son got a lot of scared texts from the other raiders about, "Can't she do that?" Son asked me and I smiled at him and said no, we just get times played to the minute. After that, the guild requested that I get on Ventrilo whenever he was there. Also put a note on my roster name saying, "Attack Mom." I gotta say, for someone who also plays these games, that was a pretty epic story. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm curious how many of my Ripe Stars also enjoy massively multiplayer online role-playing games, aka MMORPGs. Let me know in the comments if you're currently playing something. As for myself, I am, or rather was, a huge fan of these in the past. Although I've never really gotten into World of Warcraft, I've maybe played it like 2 or 3 years at a time, but I can't say I was ever addicted to that game. So yeah, let me know what you are currently playing at the moment. And now let's continue to the last story. And the last story was posted by Nikita Akashia on our own subreddit and is titled "The One Time My Sister Destroyed Her Course Project Through Our Family Constellation." Hello my fellow Ripe followers, how are you all doing? Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, so I'm telling you all a funny story from when my sister was still in school. And yes, I know, I'm late with that. Anyway, my sister was already in the higher courses of her gymnasium. We live in Germany. So instead of classes, they had courses kinda like university or something, I don't know. It was in my sister's biology course. The teacher wanted to do a little project because many kids in that course had big families and came from overseas where families are a bit different than in Germany. Not like I'm one to talk, don't worry, you will see. So the project the teacher wanted to do was sort of like looking how far apart in age the parents are, how many kids they had and how big the age gap was between the kids. So my sister and her classmates went and wrote that all down. Now here's the kicker. My sister only has one older sibling, which is me. She was born in the year 2000, 2 years after me. I'm from 1998 at the exact same day. The teacher apparently had a laughing fit. And now for the second big problem our family caused. Our dad was born in 1961, our mom in 1978, meaning they are 17 years apart. The other parents were all about 2 to 5 years apart and many were the same age. So the teacher wanted to calculate the average quota of the age gaps between the parents and how many kids were born or something, I'm not sure. So when my sister wrote down our family constellation, she said, "You completely destroyed the average." So in the end they could not finish the project because of our parents' weird age gap. Home run for my family, we destroy everything. And next time I will post another episode of all my creepy neighbors, but that is for another time. Thank you very much for posting this story, Nikita. I can sort of relate to that since my parents are also older, although I've never destroyed a school project. Either way guys, I just wanted to mention that tomorrow we will probably do another episode of r/JustNoMother-in-law, but of course we are not gonna be using stories from that subreddit, instead I will get them from somewhere else. But anyway, I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.